I should have known something was off the moment I stepped inside Tom's apartment. We had met at our usual coffee shop earlier that evening, our conversation flowing effortlessly as it always did, but there was something different about him tonight. An unusual intensity behind his words, a certain urgency in the way he spoke. When he invited me back to his apartment, I hesitated, but his insistence was gentle yet firm, leaving me little room to refuse. The air inside was thick with the scent of candles, their warm, flickering glow casting elongated, restless shadows against the walls. It wasn't just the number of candles, too many, placed too deliberately, but the way their golden light danced across the surfaces, giving everything an almost surreal quality. The usually dim and cozy space felt strangely theatrical, as if I had walked onto a carefully staged scene, a moment meticulously designed for maximum effect. A bottle of red wine sat uncorked on the table, its deep crimson liquid catching the candlelight, throwing eerie reflections on the glass. The two elegant wine glasses beside it were pristine, waiting to be filled, their positioning too perfect, too deliberate. But what caught my attention most wasn't the wine or the candles. It was the small gift box placed precisely in the center of the table, wrapped in delicate red ribbon. The sight of it sent a strange unease creeping up my spine, a warning whispering in the back of my mind. Something about its presence felt off, like it didn't belong or carried a weight I wasn't prepared for. I forced a smile, trying to steady my nerves, though my hands felt oddly cold. My fingers curled slightly, as if seeking warmth that wasn't there. "Wow, Tom, this is a lot." My voice was light, but the weight in my chest told another story. He beamed at me, but his expression was unsettlingly unreadable. His dark eyes held something: excitement, anticipation, obsession. It was a look I couldn't quite place, something charged and intense, as though he were waiting for me to react a certain way. His smile was warm, but there was a tension in his jaw, a flicker in his gaze that unsettled me. "I wanted tonight to be special," he said softly, his voice carrying a quiet sort of conviction. He took a step closer, closing the space between us with deliberate slowness, his presence subtly imposing. I could feel the warmth of his breath as he loomed, just near enough to make me aware of every movement. "Special?" I echoed, my voice lighter than I felt. The word felt foreign, strangely out of place in this moment. "What's the occasion?" He chuckled, shaking his head slightly, the movement almost too smooth, too rehearsed. "And do we need one?" His voice was casual, but there was something calculated in the way he spoke. "I just thought, you deserve something nice, something unforgettable, unforgettable." The way he said it sent a small, involuntary shiver down my spine, as if the word itself carried some unspoken meaning. There was an edge to his words, an undeniable weight that made me second-guess everything about this night. My mind raced through the moments leading up to this, questioning whether I had missed something, some warning, some clue. I found myself glancing toward the door, an instinct I couldn't quite rationalize, but one that suddenly seemed very necessary. My gaze fell on the box again, small, elegant, yet inexplicably ominous. It was just a gift, wasn't it? Then why did I feel like opening it would change something? Like there would be no going back? My stomach knotted, and the air in the room felt suddenly heavier, pressing against me with unseen force. I hesitated, fingers twitching at my sides. "You didn't have to." "Go on," he urged, cutting me off gently, his voice barely above a whisper. There was a finality in the way he spoke, an expectancy that made my skin crawl. "Open it." My breath hitched. There was something almost ceremonial in his tone, as if this moment meant more to him than I could comprehend. My fingers trembled slightly as I reached for the box, the silky texture of the ribbon smooth beneath my touch, deceptively harmless. Slowly I began to untie it, the fabric slipping through my fingers like a whisper, falling away with an ease that felt almost too easy. The lid lifted without resistance. As I peered inside, a cold sensation crawled over my skin, coiling around my spine like a serpent. My pulse quickened, heart pounding against my ribs as my mind struggled to process what I was looking at. What was inside the box? I will never forget what I saw inside. A raw, pulsing human heart. I recoiled, my stomach lurching. The box slipped from my hands, hitting the table with a sickening thud. My breath hitched in my throat as I stumbled backward, my mind struggling to process what I was looking at. "Tom," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "What? What is this?" His smile never wavered. He reached into the box, lifting the grotesque organ with both hands, blood dripping between his fingers. "It's my heart," he said softly. "I gave it to you, Sarah, so we'll always be connected." My body went rigid with horror. I took another step back, but he was already moving toward me. "You can't live without me," he whispered, his voice a sickly sweet lullaby. Literally, panic surged through me. My heartbeat thundered in my ears as I turned and bolted for the door. Tom lunged, his fingers grazing my wrist, but I tore free, my adrenaline giving me strength. I sprinted through his apartment, knocking over a chair in my frantic escape. My breath came in sharp, desperate gasps as I yanked the door open and fled down the hallway. I could hear him calling after me, his voice eerily calm, promising that I would come back to him. I didn't stop running. Down the stairs, through the lobby, out into the cold night air. My vision blurred with tears, my pulse still racing as I put as much distance between myself and Tom's twisted Valentine's Day surprise as I could. I ran for what felt like forever, my lungs burning, my legs threatening to give out beneath me. I didn't dare look back, afraid of what I might see. The city streets were mostly empty, the occasional car passing by, oblivious to the terror that gripped me. I needed help. I needed someone, anyone, to tell me this wasn't real. I finally stumbled into a dimly lit convenience store, my breath ragged. The cashier, a middle-aged man with weary eyes, looked up in surprise as I collapsed against the counter. "Please," I gasped, "call the police." His expression darkened with concern as he reached for the phone. "Are you hurt?" I shook my head, struggling to form words. "My boyfriend, he's insane. There's a heart." My voice broke, the weight of what I had seen crashing down on me. The police arrived within minutes, their flashing lights casting an eerie glow against the pavement. I tried to explain everything, but the words felt hollow, surreal. How could I possibly make them understand what I had just escaped from? They took me to the station, asked me question after question. I recounted every horrifying detail, my voice trembling. And then they went to Tom's apartment. When they returned, their faces were unreadable. They told me the apartment was empty. No candles, no dinner, no gift box. No blood, no heart. I felt the floor drop beneath me. "That's impossible," I whispered. "I saw it." I ran from it. One of the officers glanced at his partner before turning back to me. "Are you sure you weren't imagining things? Stress can do strange things to the mind." "No," I insisted, shaking my head violently. "I know what I saw, Tom. He's dangerous." They exchanged another look, and I could see it in their eyes. They didn't believe me. That was weeks ago. I've tried to move on, to convince myself that maybe they were right, that maybe my mind had played tricks on me. But then, last night, I found a small box on my doorstep, the same red ribbon. I didn't open it. I don't have to. I already know what's inside. And I know that Tom is still out there, waiting. Moral of the story is, love without trust turns into fear. True love is built on honesty. It all started with a simple Instagram comment, a "hey, how's it going?" kind of message that typically gets lost among dozens of others. But Emily's response stood out. She was witty, confident, and easy to talk to. We quickly swapped numbers, and before long, we arranged our first meetup. The chemistry was immediate. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, and by the time Valentine's Day came around, we were officially dating. I was thrilled. Finally, no more Valentine's Day alone. That evening, I planned something special. Emily loved Italian food, so I reserved a quiet corner table at a lakeside restaurant. Candles flickered between us, casting a warm glow on her face as she smiled. She looked stunning in a simple red dress, her hair cascading in loose waves over her shoulders. I could hardly believe my luck. She was perfect. We ordered wine, laughed over inside jokes, and shared a plate of spaghetti like something out of an old romance film. The restaurant had a soft, intimate ambiance, with violins playing gently in the background. I reached across the table, brushing my fingers against hers. "Happy Valentine's Day," I said. watching the way her eyes lit up. "Happy Valentine's Day," she whispered back, squeezing my hand. For a moment, everything was perfect. Then, as I glanced toward the large window overlooking the lake, a shiver ran down my spine. A man sat alone at a table near the window. He wasn't eating, wasn't engaged in conversation, he was just watching us. His posture was stiff, his gaze locked onto Emily. I frowned, shifting uncomfortably in my seat. Emily noticed my change in demeanor. "What's wrong?" she asked, concern flickering across her face. "Nothing, just—" I hesitated, glancing back at the man. He was still staring, unblinking. "That guy over there, he's been watching us the entire time." Emily turned her head slightly, scanning the restaurant. "What guy?" she asked, her voice laced with confusion. I gestured subtly toward the window, but when she looked back, the man was gone. The chair he had occupied was empty, the table undisturbed. My stomach twisted in a knot. "He was right there," I murmured, more to myself than to her. "You're probably imagining things," she said with a small laugh, squeezing my hand reassuringly. "Come on, let's not ruin our night over some random stranger." I forced a smile, pushing the uneasy feeling aside. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was just being paranoid. We finished our dinner, paid the bill, and stepped out into the chilly night air. As we walked toward my car, I scanned the area instinctively. That's when I saw him again, sitting on a bench near the restaurant entrance, his posture eerily still, his gaze following our every move. "Emily, get in the car, now." She looked at me in confusion. "What? Why?" "Just do it, please." Something in my voice must have alarmed her, because she didn't argue. She slid into the passenger seat and I locked the doors the moment I got in. My hands were tight around the steering wheel as I started the car. I glanced in the rearview mirror. The man was still there, watching. The drive home was tense. Emily kept asking what was wrong, but I didn't know how to explain it. I didn't want to scare her. It was probably nothing, I kept telling myself, but deep down I knew better. We pulled into my driveway, and for the first time in a while, I felt safe. But as we stepped out of the car, my stomach dropped. Standing at the edge of the yard, just beyond the reach of the streetlights, was the same man. Hidden in the shadows, barely visible, but I knew it was him. My pulse pounded in my ears. "Inside, now!" Emily hesitated, following my gaze. When she finally saw him, her face drained of color, we rushed inside, locking the door behind us. My heart hammered against my ribcage. "Who the hell is that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Emily swallowed hard. "His name is Ben. He's my stalker." The room felt like it had dropped 10 degrees. "What?" She nodded, her hands trembling as she gripped her phone. "I met him in college. We worked on a group project together, and ever since then, he's been obsessed with me. At first, it was just messages, then gifts. Then he started showing up at places I went. I blocked him on everything, but he always finds a way to contact me." Before I could respond, a loud crash shattered the silence. My stomach twisted in horror. The sound had come from the front window, glass, shattering. Ben had thrown something through it. Emily screamed and I grabbed her, pulling her away from the broken glass. My mind raced. I needed to act fast. I dialed 911 with shaky hands while keeping an eye on the broken window. The shadow outside shifted and I knew he was still there. 9411, what's your emergency? "My boyfriend's a member of the emergency. There's a man outside my house. He just broke my window. He's been stalking my girlfriend. We need help." The operator assured me officers were on their way, but every second felt like an eternity. I could hear movement outside, the creak of footsteps on the porch. Then, a shadow passed the window. My breath hitched. Minutes later, flashing blue and red lights flooded the street as police stormed the porch. I heard shouting and then saw Ben being dragged away, his face twisted with a sick mix of rage and satisfaction. It was over. At least, that's what I thought. Emily collapsed into my arms, shaking uncontrollably. "It's over," I whispered, holding her close. But something in the pit of my stomach told me otherwise. Weeks passed, and life seemed to settle, but Emily grew distant, her eyes constantly scanning our surroundings. One night as we sat together, she showed me a message on her phone. A chill shot through me as I read the words. "Why haven't you acknowledged my gifts? I miss you. You can't ignore me forever." It was Ben, or at least someone mimicking him with terrifying precision. He had been arrested, but his obsession hadn't ended. He was still out there, watching, waiting. More messages followed, each one more unsettling than the last. The account was always the same. No name, no face, just cryptic lines that pierced through the silence of our days. Shadows outside our windows, strange noises at night. And sometimes, I'd swear I saw a figure lurking just beyond our sight, but when I looked again, nothing was there. It wasn't just a message anymore, it was a presence. Ben may have been taken away physically, but his grip on us had never loosened. The thought of him, or whatever was left of him, still haunting our lives made my blood run cold. Ben wasn't gone, and that thought, the possibility that he was still watching, still lurking in the shadows, sent a shiver down my spine. We weren't free. Not yet. Moral of the story is, blind love can lead to darkness. Always trust your instincts.